Thank you. I'm continually, well, for those who don't know me, I'm continually confused about language. So I'll try to do this in English. We'll see what it ends up like. Okay. We're a car sharing cloud platform supplier. That means that our customers use our platform to supply car sharing services to their customers. Our customers are mostly corporate organizations. We got roughly about 800 vehicles in 7 countries, or well, our customers do, because we don't own any of them. We process somewhere between 500 and 1,000 bookings per day. So we're a very small operator, but still, we got a development team of 4 developers. So compared to the previous speakers here, it's quite a small team. We have about 20 deployed artifacts. Now you may ask what an artifact is in this sense, but it is in some sense something that you can deploy and replace separately. We got various versions of the software in vehicles. Unlike most other people who supply car sharing services, we supply both the service in the cloud and in the vehicle, that is the hardware in the vehicle. It varies a lot, but we do deployments weekly, sometimes more than weekly. And this development team is also responsible for production of this cloud service and indirectly, I should say, of the software running in the vehicles. Obviously, our customers are directly responsible for operating the vehicles themselves. And in that sense, it gets a shared responsibility. But still. Okay, so my name is Qvist. And I'm going to speak a bit about this. And it's a fuzzy concept still. But I discovered maybe 2 years ago that this stuff that I've been doing for 15 years now had a name. It was called Devops. So fine. And to give you sort of an information, because I think that it's really important in this sense to understand the context of each of these things. If I get to be slightly critical to my predecessors in the speaking here, I think the methodology and the applicability differs a lot depending on the context. And this works for us because we're a fairly small team and we've got we got our own cloud service. There's exactly one production installation, and that's it. Still, you would think that this guy that wants to get into the car without a key, that's the basic of car sharing. There is this car, I want to drive it, I don't have the key. What do I do? Well, it turns out that this breaks down to an near infinite number of variations of that use case. We've been at this since 2008, and we're still working on new use cases for this basic bit. What if I have this smartphone? I want this RFID card, I want to swipe it. I don't want to use this smartphone. There's this SMS, I want to send an SMS. Yeah. And so on and so forth. So the question then becomes, we have this development team. We are responsible for production of that system. The question is now, what does maintenance mean? Not in the structural or methodological sense, but in the concrete practical sense. What does it mean to us? Well, it means third line support. Our customers typically talk to the drivers of the vehicles, and they typically handle a lot of the day-to-day support. A lot of questions are not at all about the system. There are more like, there's this on leaf. There's this weird thing to my right. What do I do with it? For those who don't take this reference, you can go out and look at the Nissan Leaf. That's actually our Nissan Leafs out on the parking space in front of the Science Park. And see that there's this weird thing that's actually sort of the replacement of the gear stick. And so but sooner or later they run into scenarios where they need to talk to someone who can actually sort of look inside the system, as it were. So we do investigations of various sorts. We fix critical defects. This happens. We do what I like to call the uninstrumented procedures, which in clear speak means modifications directly in the database. Blocking bulks of customers or this sort of things that cannot be done through the interfaces we actually supplied. And we do a bit of reactive systems maintenance, the sort of thing where you say, oh, we need to restart this system because it's behaving strangely. But much less of that than you may think. And that, I think, is sort of the essence of the exercise. Okay, so we have this maintenance. We are trying to develop software. We are trying to support new use cases. We are trying to do all sorts of things with our development. And we need to understand, or I needed to understand when I sat down maybe 2 years ago to ponder this. What does this disruption mean? What does it mean? What effect does it actually have in concrete terms when we get critical defects, when we get these, oh, this and this happened and this did not happen, this sort of thing. I got the SMS and everything was fine, but couldn't open the car. So we need to figure out, what does that mean? Obviously it steals time. We have this development team, we have a sprint, we have a deadline, yada, yada, and now someone's sort of just grabbed a bit of time out of our schedule, right? We can try to estimate it, we can all these things. But no, remember, we're a fairly small team. Grabbing a day out of one developer in a sprint that's like 3 weeks long is still enough that this may cause problems for the delivery at the end. But more importantly, it disrupts flow. Time is just time, right? We can always sort of say to the customer, sorry, we didn't get there because you reported lots of support issues or whatever. But it disrupts flow, which is more problematic. And the developer sits down and has to concentrate a bit. There are some parts of the system that are difficult to write tests for. In these areas, flow is absolutely critical. And you need to be able to focus for a sufficient amount of time. But also, we do something that I like to call thematic sprints. We take various bits that sort of go together. This is usually rather easy to get your customers to agree to, or rather, because they usually focus on a bit of an area, and you say, and we say, oh, we got these other bits that are also sort of bad. And they say, oh, yeah, that's true, we want to fix those too. But then, when a problem comes in, an investigation, something comes in, it dilutes our focus. The developers go and say, oh, well, this stuff over here, we need to look at that too. And that's, in some sense, actually the most problematic of these issues, that we get to spread the attention over too much of the code base, effectively, of the system, too many artifacts, if you will. And so this. And yet, I think we need to remember, and I try to remind our developers, that the running code is that which produces value for us, much more than the development we do. And we need to remember that our customers' costs are typically sticky. They lease cars for 3 years. They can't really get out of those deals. They can, but mostly they can't. But the revenue is very flighty. The users may essentially just say, this isn't good enough, we're not going to use it, it doesn't fit my use case. So we need really to keep in mind that when we talk of this, and it's very easy as a developer to think of it as a disruption, as a problem. But from a cost perspective, from a business perspective, that's not necessarily the case. It's not necessarily the case that the development we are doing should actually be prioritized. It may even be argued at some points that the disturbance is in fact the software development. That's the bit that disturbs the actual production of value in this sense. Obviously, we hope that we produce code that produces this value without needing the maintenance, needing the investigations, etc. But when we go there, we may need it.
2 minutes left.
Good, good. Okay, so we need to embrace this development, this production in some sense. We need to make sure that we give it the attention that it needs. And in order to do this, the most important thing to do that is to make sure, this is a sort of a rotation issue. Each and every developer has to be familiar with the production environment. Not just because that's where the code is going to run, but also because that cuts the time. It reduces the disruption from the developer's perspective, because developers typically want to develop rather than produce, right? But cutting that experience, this is a cultural issue more than anything else. I'm a great believer in making sure that people have the tools that they need, because when they have that tools, it will invariably shape their experience for what they do. And if you give them the right tools, they will feel this being less of a problem, and when it feels less of a problem, it will become less of a problem. So, finally, there is some best practices derived from ours. Version control, absolutely critical for shaping, handling, cherry picking. We currently cherry pick features, so the developer won't really know at this point if a particular feature goes to deployment. Of course, we want that because it's customer value probably, and we want to deploy it. But doing that, we're going to switch to feature by branch by feature in a bit to see how that goes. Access to clones of production data. A developer needs within minutes to be able to have access to production databases to replicate problems, to investigate behavior.
You have 30 seconds to wrap up, but leave a good cliffhanger.
Very good. So, the last one is sort of funny. It's sort of very specific to us, but still to give you a feeling. Typically, stand-up meetings would be in the morning. Most bookings start in the morning. So most new problems will be discovered in the morning. So we moved our stand-up meetings to 11 o'clock. Then most problems will happen, and the stand-ups will be about those problems when they occur, rather than the actual development. Okay? Thank you.
Okay.